Welcome everyone to the May board meeting of Ignite CDA. If you'll stand and help me with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. It's time for public comment. Anybody with public comment, please come forward. Seeing none.
My only comment would be Mick Arman's a great guy, and it's nice to have him back on board.
It sure is. Next, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar, which includes the approval of last month's board meetings, the payable for this month, and the monthly financial statements.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Comments? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Thanks. Motion carries. Tony, Executive Director's report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight I bring forward to you an award recommendation from the Atlas RFP Review Scoring Committee for RFP number 9, which involves Area 13 at the Atlas project. Jeff, can you pop up that PDF? Oh, I got it. So I'll use the screen to kind of walk folks through the process that was used. Just to refresh everybody's memory, the committee is made up of several Heartland members, Matt Anderson and Ben Wharton. We have myself from Ignite CDA, Brenda Mandel from Ignite CDA, Olivia Metz from Ignite CDA, Christy Wood, Hillary Patterson, and Troy Tymason from the City of Coeur d'Alene, and Phil Boyd from Welch-Comer Engineers. To refresh everybody's memory where Area 13 is, it's located down along the water, south of Area 5A, which is here, and right adjacent to the new Atlas Waterfront Park green space. Area 13 footprint is about 1.1 acres. The Area 13 RFP development standards allow for multiple uses, but the site is envisioned for a standalone or mixed-use concept involving retail or food and beverage. Area 13 is envisioned to be an activator for the corner of Atlas and Hartwood Roads, with an active use designed to serve as a draw for visitors to the Atlas Waterfront Park. We received 2 proposals for Area 13. The first one was from the Chase Mixus development team out of Boise. Their purchase price was $1.45 million with no escalation. The product type was 24 to 30 condos or high-end apartments in 3 three-story buildings, a mix of 1 and 2-bedroom units. They're proposing a retail space of 5,000 square feet split between 3 buildings with active storefronts in each building. They have an anchor tenant identified, which is Western Proper. Their parking solution is below grade, and they're willing to close on the property purchase by 12/31/23. This is some concepts they provided on what they're looking at. This is a view from kind of west looking east on the proposed buildings along the Spokane River. This is more of a direct look from the river into the 3-building footprint. This is a look from north looking south towards the river, kind of showing their center space between the buildings. And this is a shot looking from the park, looking west towards our buildings. The second proposal was submitted by Widmeyer Summit Holdings Development Team. Their purchase price was $650,000 with an escalation up to $750,000. The product type, they had 41 apartments proposed, 17 one-bedrooms, 12 medium studios, 12 small studios, all in one building. They proposed a retail space of 4,000 square feet located in a separate adjacent building. They did not identify a tenant in their proposal. Their parking solution is surface parking, no below-grade parking on this proposal, and they're also willing to close on the property purchase by 12/31/2023. This is a concept view, kind of an aerial looking down on the site showing the parking solution as well as the main building with the apartments and their adjacent retail space. Another view looking from the river, their adjacent retail space, as well as a view of the apartment building. A more full-on view from the river looking at their apartment building. And finally, a look kind of highlighting their proposed retail space with a lot of glass frontage that would accompany that building. So using information provided from both development teams, a financial comparison analysis was performed that considered the offered land price plus estimated tax increment revenue projected to be realized over a 16-year projection period. We use 16 years because this is in the Lake District, and the Lake District is technically closed, but all our analysis, we've been using the time frame of the Atlas Atlas District termination for 16 years. So we wanted to kind of keep that similar time frame in this analysis. As shown in the table, the Chase Mixes proposal will generate an estimated $1.2 million for the condo product, or $861,000 for the apartment product, in additional revenue to Ignite over the 16-year period. The committee members scored the proposal using the matrix that was contained in the RFP. There's a total of 200 points available. And the scoring results were that the Chase Mixes development team, 190 points, the Widmeyer Summit Holdings development team, 134 points. As I note here, during the scoring process, the committee members discussed both qualitative and quantitative elements of the submitted proposals. Both development teams submitted quality proposals that would add value to the Atlas project. The committee appreciated the time and effort invested by both development teams in proposing on Area 13. So a motion was made by Metz, seconded by Patterson, recommending to this board that project Area 13 be awarded to the Chase Mixes team with the following conditions. Property purchase must occur prior to 12/1/2023, so December 1st. A tenant letter of intent and LOI must be in place prior to 11/15/2023. We want to make sure that they have a tenant in hand with a commitment by that time frame. Agreement to negotiate exclusively document and timeline of 60 days, which is typically 90 days, but we shortened it up to 60 days, with the reuse appraisal due within the first 30 days of that 60-day time horizon, and giving them time to perform any desired due diligence. We're requesting a deposit of 7% of the purchase price, which equates to about $101,500. The deposit becomes non-refundable following execution of a disposition and development agreement. We also have some architecture consideration. We'd like to see more extensive glazing on retail spaces and ground floor uses, and lighten up on the facade color. So there's some work to be negotiated with kind of the design look on these three buildings. I don't know if Commissioner Mandel would like to add anything to that discussion, but I bring forward that recommendation for board consideration.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions. I would just say each round we seem to get better and better kind of at the process and considerations and conditions that we want to put in place when working with developers. So it's a great group, and I'm really grateful for all the work that Welch Comer is doing and Heartland, and I think the analyses are getting better and better each time. But yes, happy to answer any questions on behalf of the committee.
I'm curious about the anchor tenant, Western Proper. Anybody know what that is?
I don't know anything.
We don't know. I don't know personally much about them, but they are ubiquitous in Boise with what the Chase has worked with them in the past. A lot of downtown activities. They come highly recommended, but we don't think they have, I don't know of a footprint here in Coeur d'Alene that they have in place. So this would be new territory for them coming north.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Any other questions? Do you have anything for us, Sarah?
No, I did Google Western Proper just to see what it was, and it's kind of a hangout place that is kind of combo sports bar, pub, food, stuff like that. So sounds like it could be a lot of fun down there.
Good location for them. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's what we're going for.
So, there's 3 tenants, and that would be the anchor, right? There'd be 2 more? Is that what I understood?
Our understanding is Western Proper would take all of the retail space.
Okay, I thought I
3
heard.
buildings
Okay.
It's a separate
with
building.
condos or apartments, but
Yeah, I was thinking, all right. I didn't understand that when I was reading it
one
earlier.
anchor, one tenant, one commercial space.
I liked how the Widmeyer proposal closed escrow a lot sooner, but I agree with your committee, though, that this one seemed to add a lot more.
Further discussion? Thanks for all you do on the committee that looks at the proposals, the RFPs, Euro and Olivia. So I'll entertain a motion to approve. Danielle?
I would just like to add to the motion and the conditions that the committee outlined, that we make it subject to them accepting our typical DDA as we've previously negotiated with them. DeChase submitted with a separate letter of intent that has different timelines than are outlined in our typical documents. And I would like to stick with our typical process. They are experienced with that. You know, we've done 2 DDAs with them in the past, so I would just want to make it conditioned on the fact that we are not approving the terms of their letter of intent in terms of the timelines, and we're going to stick with our A&E at 60 days as outlined and typical DDA process.
Understood.
So that's when the earnest money is non-refundable, is at 60 days?
Yeah, what the committee was suggesting was that it becomes non-refundable at the time that we enter into the DDA because, as we all know, the timing for getting this closed this year is more critical than it typically is. So the closer we get to the end of the year, the more difficult it's going to be for us to dispense of the property if they were to back out. So we want them to have some real skin in the game pretty quickly.
No, I agree. That it concerns me that how long that escrow period is on this one. That's the thing that concerns me about this one versus the other one, but I'll defer to the findings of your committee, though.
They did change it from the proposal. I don't know, just to confirm that you saw that. So they did agree that they would be able to close on the property by the end of the year, and we are in turn proposing back that they close by December 1st. Because closing on December 31 is always tricky, as we know.
Yeah.
So I don't think that the terms are that much different than the Widmeyer proposal in terms of closing date at this point. Their original proposal was for a much longer closing, but we told them, when we interviewed them, we let them know that we're in a tight time frame with this property.
Right, okay.
So the same closing date for both proposals, or roughly, by the end of the year. Okay. Motion?
I thought the other one closes in August, doesn't it?
That's what their proposal was, and in all likelihood, when we get into the A&E and the DDA process, they'll probably push into the fall because of the timeframes. But it's they propose an all-equity solution purchase, so they would be willing to close in August if they could get everything done and squared away by then. But that's pretty aggressive from what we've experienced working through the A&E and DDA processes.
Okay. All right. So we have one that's local and then one that's not local.
Well, as you recall, the Chase has several projects underway at the Atlas project, areas 10 and 12. So they've entered the Coeur d'Alene market.
Right. Okay.
So I'll make a motion that we award Atlas Project Area 13 to DeChase Mixus team with the following conditions. List them out. Danielle, is that what you prefer?
I can list them.
Okay.
They're contained in the minutes. If you support the conditions of the committee, they'll be reflected.
Thank you.
With the additional condition, right? Okay.
I've captured Danielle's additional condition.
Got it.
You want to read that back to us, please?
Motion by Evans, no second yet. Approving the Atlas Project RFP Committee recommendation with the stated conditions to award RFP number 9, Area 13 to the DeChase Mixus Development Team, direction agency staff to prepare the necessary agreement to negotiate exclusively. And also, I'll work on the verbiage here to require them to use our DDA process and not accepting their LOI contained in their proposal. I'll clean that up a bit.
Okay.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Thanks, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next on the agenda is the Atlas Project, Welch-Comer Contract Amendment Number 27 regarding areas 18 and 19 infrastructure redesign. And Phil Boyd's going to lead that discussion on the proposal for that redesign effort.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Hoskin and board members. So as Tony said, there's some necessary infrastructure redesign on area 18 and 19. And so I'm going to kind of walk the board through some of the history so we can kind of harken back where we started and where the SMOC team is proposing that we end up. So originally, the board might remember, this was the vision. This is right out of the development standards. This was kind of the proposed configuration for the Atlas development. And for the most part, it's held pretty darn true to that. In this area, areas 18 and 19, it was always envisioned that that would be some sort of townhome type product. And the thinking was a little higher density, a little lower price point. We also showed it down in here. You might recall that Toll Brothers actually has it where we show single family homes here. They're pretty fancy units, so they have a pretty high price point, or higher price point. I guess it might be relative. So this was the original vision for the development. When we put RFP 5 out, if the board remembers, this was when we put this out on the street the first time. We got 2 proposals. Butler's showed townhomes up here in a little different configuration. Toll Brothers showed townhomes up here as well, proposed to put townhomes up there. The board awarded to Toll Brothers, and then at the last minute, they backed out when we were all disappointed because it was a really big number that they were proposing. So time goes on, we get to RFP number 9. Toll Brothers submits again, proposes townhome units like this, consistent with their RFP 5 proposal. And SMOC proposes twin homes, which is a different configuration. So since we were marching the infrastructure along with the intent of putting townhomes in there, because we had seen townhomes in the original vision twice before, we were designing the infrastructure in that way. Designed the infrastructure, had it permitted by the city, and we're building it. As we started to get into this RFP 9 phase, the SMOC said, hey, we're thinking of doing twin homes there. What do you think? And of course, my heart sank a little bit because we were under construction and have actually built the water line through here and the sewer line through here. But we stopped the contractor from putting any sewer services or water services in. So as the board worked through the proposals, you were looking at them, you awarded to Toll Brothers, and then again, they backed out for the second time. So then you elected to award to the SMOC team. And right down here, you'll see that when we were vetting the two, both of them were asking for infrastructure changes for their needs. For SMOCs, they were asking for things like the alley and some other improvements. We actually went in and estimated the improvements that would need to be made to support the SMOC infrastructure. So adding a bunch of water and sewer services, because when it's a townhome configuration like this, you just need one water service and one sewer service to take care of these. When it's twin homes like this, they're individual units, so each one of them has to have a water service and a sewer service. So we had to add a whole bunch more, but we wanted to make sure to take that into consideration when the board was looking at the financial comparison. So we did that right here and essentially budgeted for it in your analysis. So what it requires moving forward is to go in and essentially redesign all the water and sewer services, which change all the stormwater treatment. It changes the approaches in here. We have alleys up on the side, and there's a fair amount of work to go in and do that. And then once we get the design done, we have to make it through the city, and we've got to go back to La Riviere and negotiate a change order for all those improvements. So none of that was in our current scope of work. So in addition to that, we have to replat the property because it's currently in 2 big lots. and it needs to be converted into 20 lots, 10 twin home lots, which is also in this number here. So we had put it in the original comparison so you guys could see the side-by-side correct comparison. So the proposed contract amendment has a fee of $20,000 broken out in this way. The plat is the big part of it. We propose, if the board cuts us loose tonight, is we get right on it. We'll get the replat into the city in June 7th. We'll have our infrastructure plans in mid-June. We'll get through our contract negotiations, and then we'll come back to the board with a change order from La Riviere for the work, and then also an amendment to our contract, because where we're at now is La Riviere has stopped, which they have been agreeable. They've gone away from the site. Now we've got to work through the negotiations of when they're going to come back to the site, how long they'll be at the site, which drives how long we'll be at the site doing construction phase services. So there is going to be a cost impact to all this. We've attempted to capture it up in this number, because you can see there's a big number there, $340,000, and we've attempted to estimate and capture what we think those cost increments will be, but we won't know until we get the design done and negotiate the restart with La Riviere. So I know that was a lot of information I just hucked at you, so I'm glad to answer any questions about that.
Questions for Mr. Boyd? Must have explained it very well.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Okay,
We would need a motion.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve contract amendment number 27 for infrastructure redesigns in areas 18 and 19.
I'll second that.
moved and seconded. Discussion, questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, that motion carries.
Thank you. So the next item I'm going to talk about is Phase 3. We've talked about this several times on what to do with Phase 3, which is the areas over here, really 11 and 20. 7 gets lumped into it, but 7 was already part of an earlier phase, but we've moved it into Phase 3 for construction phasing purposes. But all the numbers that you'll see will be associated with areas 11 and 20. And so the board will recall that was Mount Hink, and what do we do with Mount Hink? And we had the opportunity to move the soils that former Mayor Woodmeyer had kind of brainstormed the idea of, can't we get it over to the ITD pit? We did the economics of it, presented it to the board. The board said, yes, let's do it. We've moved forward with that. It's, for the most part, finished. At some point, the board, we started considering different ways to develop Phase 3. We looked at doing a single-family product. We looked at doing some sort of cottage court twin home. We looked at a combination of single-family and multifamily. This configuration right here is what makes the math work, so to speak. You can generate enough land sales to pay for your development costs, for paying to move all those soils. We presented this to the board in December and showed you the kind of the different options here, single-family, cottage court, and the multifamily ones with townhomes and single-family. And you can see this is the one that puts you in the black. But part of what the board had deliberated on at that time is, gosh, this will be a little lower price point product here, as you can see in this row. So the board said, geez, let's kind of head down that path, and this is in December. So we went forward with that and developed this concept. And this has cottage court townhomes here. So there's actually 8 units in there. And then there's twin homes down in here. And you can see we've gone into area 7 and kind of put a matching single-family home product. This is a very early concept. We walked this through with the board, and this is about February. At the time, these twin homes price points were kind of shown in this category, which is a pretty, still a high number there. But these products, where there's 8 of them, we anticipated that they would be lower, but we really hadn't vetted it much beyond that because we didn't know if the board liked the idea. So at the time, we talked through this with the board and said, geez, do you want us to go forward? Should we be looking this as a market rate product? Should we be looking this as a workforce housing product? What would you like us to do? And at that time, the board said, we would like you to pause until we get through RFP 8 and 9, which we're kind of through those, but we're not completely through those. So that was in February of 2023. Here we are in May. So Tony asked me, and the board asked me to bring it forward here. And again, we're just dipping our toes in the water here, trying to get some direction for the board. And one of the things that I thought might be useful is to kind of present to you where are we at financially, because it would give you an idea of, we've essentially sold off everything else in the development. We're into phase 3. What's our range of motion in phase 3? Like, what can we do there? Can we give it all away and break even, or do we have to generate a certain amount of revenue to break even? So that's the analysis that I did here. So here's phase 1, here's phase 2. The lines that are shown in this green here are products that you still own, areas that you still own and have not sold, and we have estimated values here. Area 13, you just awarded to DeChase, and the reason it's in yellow is because you don't have the money in your pocket yet. And so, but it gives you a general idea that in phase 2, you generate about $20 million in land sales. This next row here shows the development costs, and then it shows the net revenue in each phase. So if you kind of think about phase 1 and 2 is where you're bringing in all your money and paying the majority of your development costs. We also have in here the proposed reimbursement to the city, it's actually 9.175 million. And it reimburses the city for all the money that they've put into this project, which includes the original purchase of the railroad corridor, which, remember, that preceded the big land purchase. It includes the 7.875 million that they purchased the land with, and it includes the money that they paid to fill a bunch of it prior to Ignite getting involved. If you remember, we took soils off of I-90, or the contractor from I-90 took them off of there, put them into the site, and the city paid that bill at the time. So this 9.17 million here, rounded up, reimburses the city. So what gets us to a break even? And so you can see I've got a $56 break even point here, which of course it won't get that tight, but you would have to sell the 74 lots at $44,000 a piece. So that's what you could do to lower the threshold to entry, I suppose, if you were thinking about doing this in a workforce housing way. You could also drop that number and create a loss down here, because remember, this does not include any increment. This is just what did we invest into the property, how much money did we get out of the property, and it includes both Ignite's investment in the infrastructure and the development costs and the city's investment in it. So everyone would be getting made whole here in this break-even scenario. So again, I presented a bunch of information there. The question that Tony asked me to float here is, how do you want us to proceed? Do you just want us to say, let's just go market rate and be done with this? Do you want us to look at this fair reuse appraisal process with targeted price points and deed restrictions where we might lower the land value here? How do you want to go forward? And it could be that you just say, let's wait another month.
So what, now we still had some other land to sell, or is that it? You said everything that you've got highlighted in yellow.
So
Is that considering you sell everything?
this considers phase 2 is selling everything. Let me get back to my big overview map here. So phase 2 and 1 and 2 are all of this. The only thing that we would not have sold is phase 3. And let me be even more clear here. The two areas, 5A down here, we've attempted to sell, but it fell out of contract, so to speak. So will be for sale in a future RFP. So that one. And then Area 13 just sold down here.
And we don't have the money for that figured in.
It's shown in this spreadsheet, Commissioner Jordan,
Okay, so it is figured in.
but it's not in your bank account, so to speak, yet. So,
I'm
and-
just saying, I don't want to cut it so tight we're at $56. I'm just,
Yep. And remember, this is, if the board were to say go today, I anticipate we're a year away, before we would really get into this. But Tony and I were talking about this earlier with Hillary Patterson, is that there's a little bit of a lift here to figure out if you're going to deed restrict this property, in order to allow the lower price point component to carry on in perpetuity, although I probably shouldn't use that word, but use a different word moving forward, that it would carry on a long time. So,
The main thing we're looking for tonight is direction from the board. Do you want us to consider any type of, I'll use the term attainable housing. That seems to be the term du jour these days. Attainable housing for phase 3, or just consider market rate. But if we want to look at attainable housing solutions, it's going to take some time. We're going to have to work with a lot of different stakeholders in the community to come up with the right model that would work for us. We'll have Heartland consulting us, so it's just going to take some time, but we just need to know if you'd like us to lean that way, we can do some homework and bring back some opportunities and suggestions to the board about how that might work. So we're just kind of at this tipping point now about where do we want to go with phase 3.
well, I think, is that,
Go ahead, Brandon.
okay. So while we're discussing this, I think obviously in the market that we're in, attainable housing is a worthwhile goal that's needed badly in this city. But I think also there's got to be some guardrails on this, so we don't sell low-priced housing and then they flip it, for example, for lack of a better term. Somehow it needs to stay attainable.
That's what a deed restriction would do.
Right, that's one way. There's a lot of ways.
Do we have any data on the need? I mean, we know the need is great. It's a frequent topic at all of our workshops, almost every meeting. Do we have any?
I don't, and we don't, and I think that was kind of Tony's point, is if the board is like, gosh, it's really not what we envisioned for our project here. This is not the place for attainable housing, because this is has been a highly developed neighborhood. There are higher price point products here, which is one of the things we would go dialogue with the developers around us, about this idea of if the board were to look at attainable housing in here, how do you feel about it? Do you feel like it would negatively, what would we need to do so it didn't negatively impact the property values of your proposed products over here? But as far as the need for it, Commissioner Evans, I don't know, and I think that's part of the data Tony is proposing we bring back to you, should you decide to move down this path.
Dan?
Well, just a couple of discussion points. Last night, actually, when the council approved for Mick to come up on the board, one of the council members voted no because, well, he's always got his reason, but there was some discussion, and it came up exactly this kind of thing, that, in terms of board members, and one of the things, that's driving a lot of interest out there is, the workforce housing, attainable housing, whatever it's called. So, and we had discussed, and part of that discussion said, as we, I voted to support that reappointment of Mick, but also with the real eye for, we have said in our things before that, this is an important goal to us. We haven't really done too much. And, in terms of, if I look at, and again, kind of weighing, the needs and the pluses, and, when I hear that, gee, the city could be made whole on everything, including way back when, about the property, the corridor, part of me say, oh, that's a great thing. On the other hand, both entities, are in support of making more, available housing. And when I think, okay, in the role of Ignite, what opportunities do we have? If we don't do something here, I mean, then what's left? We don't know where the hospital medical corridor is going to go, but I mean, I think that's our only other district. I mean, we don't have a whole lot of options if we are going to be a player and kind of follow through on some of what we've said. So I don't know, but I guess I wouldn't want to brush past that. I'm also, we've been at this long enough now that we kind of went through, when the market, kind of crunched in the prices, and then it, got better again, and things were roaring, and, now with the interest rate, and if I hear, even a home mortgage, in the 6% or something, in the history of stuff, that actually isn't a bad rate, but it's scary to people. So I don't know, there's a few kind of caution flags, but I wouldn't want to just brush past this and say, oh no, let's kind of get the most money we can out of it. This is something I think we need to do a real deliberate thought process, knowing that there's going to be some trade-offs.
I do remember kind of when we started out that we kept stalling the opportunity for more density or housing products that were smaller footprint. So, I still would be skeptical to think of this as workforce housing unless we had some real teeth in it. But at least we kind of our commitment to have some density in a product mix that we stalled when we were at the start and got a lot of single family, a lot of higher price point. So I still think we have some responsibility at least to pursue that in maybe some test balloons or something, like what's possible, what's feasible, what's realistic before we jump to market rate. So I'd like to see us stick with that exploration and just gathering some data and some market feedback, maybe with a realistic view that it may not be truly attainable or workforce housing unless we have some, like, what are the upper limits of the deed restrictions that are tolerated or tolerable to still attract developers in, or what kind of partnerships might be out there to explore. And I think that will take time. But I think we're in a position where we can take that time and it's worth it. And I think it's part of our purview at Ignite. So that would be my preference.
And a question with our neighbor to the west, who, all of those multi-story units are going up. I forget, do we know, are those rental units or sales units, and how is that coming into the market going to potentially impact what we do here?
Well, my understanding, you're talking about the Lance Douglas development
Yes.
to the west, so that's all going to be market rate apartments, is my understanding.
Okay. So not really competition then?
No, I don't, not for
we're
what we're
talking,
talking
okay.
about from attainable housing there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, I know he's still negotiating with the city about what he's planning to do along the water. I don't know if
Yeah.
that'll change anything or
Right,
not, but
right.
I don't
The
see that
rest
as
of them are going up, yeah, so, okay.
So you said it's not competition for what?
attainable
Well,
housing, I think.
Well, in terms
There's
of
a lot of
our
competition
sales
within our,
product, I
but don't
mean,
we have some market rate apartments in our area here?
We
So-
do. Areas 10 and 12, we have market rate.
So that's
My
direct competition.
thought was that we were talking about if we put attainable housing over in Phase 3, that there really isn't any competition from our neighbor to the west.
For that
In that market.
specific,
Yeah,
for that specific phase.
I would agree in that specific part, it's not a direct competition. It sounds like the way we're going is we need to study this.
Yeah.
yeah.
I think we've got a lot of developers that are paying big money to buy property here, and we need to be sure we're respectful of the money that's being spent here, and we protect the developers that are buying this property. But I still, stand by what I said, that, that's, attainable housing is needed in the city. But there's a lot of things, that need to be studied. It needs to be something that's still reasonably high-end and is compatible and it's properly buffered with the other development. And there's some other parts of area, the area there that could be higher-end housing around that. So, but I've seen a lot of developments where you have a mixture of high-end and moderate-priced housing, and it works. You just have to be real careful how we do it. So, sounds like the direction we're going is to study it some
Could you go
more.
to your last spreadsheet, please? The one with the yellow stuff on it? Now, you've got 74 cottage lots. Where did that come from?
The,
Is that the option 2, from the original option 2?
it's this here. So there's 74 cottage courts in here, and I just, excuse me, averaged them, even though these are townhomes technically, I just classified all of them as cottage court. Or all of them as cottages at this point, just to get an average number. I just wanted to give the board this number right here, to just give you perspective.
So that's that's 74 lots in unit area 18 and 19.
In areas 11 and 22.
And
In this area here, it's these 74.
those 3 areas, and not 17. Or
Not 7, which is
7.
down here, correct. 7 would be market rate.
That 7 already been sold?
No, we've purposely left it out because it's in the way, so to speak.
Right.
We don't want anyone living there while we're,
We can make this whole if we sell 74 lots and it was 44,000, is that market rate?
no. What we had
Or
originally,
if it's not, what is it? Is it high or low?
it's low. What
It's cheap.
Heartland projected was about 82,000 on average.
Yeah.
So it's about half of the market rate. To give you perspective, and is the areas 9, 18, and 19, which those are the lots looking over, they're kind of the view lots. They were worked out to $115,000 apiece.
And
So where's area 7 then in that?
It's right here in this green line item right here. And so I put them in at $85,000 a lot, because we see the pricing coming down quite a bit from what I'll just give you for instance. So this number right down here, $20 million in phase 2. In August of 2022, we had that number estimated at $25 million. So we've lost 25.
yeah,
About
that
5
sounds,
million?
Yeah.
that sounds about right.
Yeah, so that's just to give the board perspective, but not to belabor this too much. Remember, your guys' vision is different though than just a straight developer, because you're looking for increment, and it's very important for you guys to get to vertical and get the increment churning, which none of this analysis looks at. It only considers, like you were doing this in a, expense and revenue, and you want to break even. Now, back to what I think Commissioner Mandel was headed, if you want to really make them attainable, you could underwrite this and drive this number down and say, gee, we're going to use some of our future increment to underwrite that. Or you could go back to the city and say, golly gee, we intend to pay you back $9.175 million, but why don't you put some skin in the game to help underwrite phase 3? So there's some different scenarios there that we could bring back in this exploratory endeavor we're talking about here.
Well, 44 is really low. I agree with you. But I think Dan touched on this. I don't know if the goal here needs to be to break even. If we made several $1 million on this project, we have other places probably, where that money can be used in other civic purposes, so.
It's a little bit of a challenge when you look at the districts where you might to spend that money, because the district it has to be spent within the district. And
Right.
I think those are some of the things we might bring back as well.
I know, we need a map of the district and, but it's not to say I'm still for attainable housing, but I still like to try and maximize some of the rest of the land we have so we can make some money on this for other potential projects and civic uses. And
Dan?
Well, it seems like many of the points that we've been making these decisions, we've had the clock really, we've had the pressure of time, but it seems like with this, if we take some time, there isn't anything that's gonna really fall out, or we're not desperate for the money right now. When I look at, for the lots, and I'm thinking back now, about 8 years ago, trying to find some Habitat for Humanity lots, and man, if we could have gotten, for 60, 80,000, but 44,000 for a lot that you can build something on that somebody's going to own. That is well, if you said it's half of market rate, so, I think we have to balance. We probably can't go too far, but I on the other hand, could come up with some things and frankly, maybe give the city a chance of, gee, what would it take to get it down to, 30,000, and maybe we don't get paid back as much for something, but in terms of the collective mission of the city, we're doing it too. So, yeah, kind of sounds like take our time, and we're not desperate to sell them right now.
I think we need to move this property, but holding out, that area there, I don't think is, I think we can do that, but I think we need to move on the other areas we got, like we're doing, and get them sold.
Yeah.
And-
How do you
and-
propose to move forward with Area 7 then, if we're waiting and the rest of it?
Well, I guess we don't move forward with that one, we just get rid of everything else and get rid of isn't the right term, but get,
The only other one left
Get it
to
sold.
go is 5A here. And Tony and I were discussing this earlier today, and the DeChase team has expressed interest in this as well. We've had some other folks, but it's been a challenge. Everyone that's looked at it has, the construction costs make it a challenge, and the parking makes it a challenge because most of it has to be within the building which drives the cost up. And our discussion kind of concluded we probably should just wait and get some more rooftops in here, because this has a required commercial component in it. So that required commercial component creates some reticence in the
yeah, that
buildings.
could help.
But it sounds like what I'm hearing from the board, or what I think we're hearing from the board, is you want to head down and have us explore this and bring back information. What's the need? What are the different scenarios we might consider for deed restrictions on the property? And a lot of this ground we know has been plowed. And so we're going to reach out to the people that have plowed that ground and start to work with them.
There's a lot of models out there for this kind of thing. Boise's done some of that in the Boise area.
And as Tony
Portland,
mentioned,
Seattle.
Heartland has done a bunch of this. They've actually implemented it, not just studied it. They've actually worked with public entities where they have done it. And so they kind of understand the pitfalls and challenges with it.
But it has to be high quality, so it doesn't negatively impact the rest of this whole development. That's critical when they do these projects, to making the affordable component work. It has to be high quality and have some pretty strict CC&Rs.
I appreciate the board's direction. I think we understand, and we will pursue that, and we will engage the necessary resources to kind of move this ball down the field, so to speak.
What's the risk of
Phil, can you
waiting?
leave that one graphic, your overview graphic up? Just to remind the board, see if this works here. Down here in the bottom right, I just want to remind the board that we have participated in affordable housing with Whitewater Creek years ago. So these are all affordable apartments down in Riverstone, where I'm pointing to, right on the Prairie Trail, and they use federal tax credits to do that. And we help them achieve those federal tax credits through our participation. So I think people forget that we've been in this game already. We've had success as a partner. So this, what Phil's talking about for phase 3 is this would be us alone doing this, and maybe in partnership with the city, as Phil pointed out. But this would be some new ground, but this is not our first dance in this rodeo.
And we did a senior housing project across the street, so.
Yep.
Well,
Can you
also,
go
Tony,
back to the last spreadsheet, please.
along I-90, when you're heading into town, aren't those apartments along there an affordable component too?
Mill River Seniors, the one we
Also,
partnered with.
It's in No, Riverstone West, where you're heading into town before the Northwest Boulevard exit.
Oh, North Star or whatever, the assisted living?
No, the apart,
I think you're talking about the same project
okay.
that Tony was just
It looked like he was
at.
pointing to a
Yeah.
different spot on the map, okay.
Well, that was different from those, yeah.
And then, and we tried our darndest up in Midtown. It didn't work out, but we tried up there. So it's not like we haven't been trying for affordable housing.
So this spreadsheet shows that if you sold the 74 lots for half price, you all should, and we break even on this project, so you all should be very proud of that.
Yeah.
You know, from
Yeah.
quite a while ago, when we were trying to, the first spreadsheets were coming out, going, oh boy, how do we make this happen? So,
Yeah.
and what's our risk of waiting
The
and
market,
having you study it,
the market,
up or down, though?
it could get better, it could get worse.
Yeah.
But that's.
Any other risks? If we don't put the Area 7 into the sell it, what does that do to our bottom line on phase 2?
All the infrastructure is in for Area 7, so the cost to support Area 7 has sunk, and it could be one of those things, and perhaps in Commissioner Jordan's world, he's actually done this, where there's some of your product that you have not sold, and you don't sell it intentionally, and you just let the neighborhood ripen and become a really super nice neighborhood, and then 5 years from now, you put Area 7 on the market, because at that point, everyone wants to live there, because it's vibrant, it's got a great community, and, you know, those are the last 17 lots you put on the street.
That's a good risk, then.
Yeah, that could be, because you've already sunk the cost in the infrastructure, so you have no future.
So we're not on the negative side of the decimal point for if we don't sell it.
Correct,
So-
correct.
That's the commercial one you're talking about?
No, it's this one here, Commissioner
Right, the
Jordan.
buffer one.
It's
at
the buffer
bottom.
one, yeah. Oops, it's this one right down here.
And then we still got, what area, 5A?
5A, right?
Yeah, we've still got that area. We have equity in that one.
Correct. And all the infrastructure is in for that one as well.
Yeah, so we still have the potential to make maybe several million, depending on the market.
Which we show in this is what I think Commissioner, Chairman Hoskins was pointing at
Have an
here is
average of those in
It's
there.
those two right there. So we've got them estimated at 2.6 million.
Right, and that's obviously a moving number.
Yep.
And one other thing, things get forgotten real easy. This started out selling half the waterfront and keeping half of it for the public, and then there was so much demand by the public to preserve all the waterfront for the public. So we're trying to do this and not sell any of the waterfront, and keep all the waterfront
Yeah,
public.
that's,
So,
So we had a big nut to crack to make this work.
yep.
Tony, what do you need from us to continue studying this?
Have we talked enough?
I think we have what we need.
I know, but who's going to be studying it? Who's going to be doing all this?
You're looking at them. It's going to be me and Phil. We're gonna engage probably Hillier with the city and probably Heartland.
You'll
to
come back
start out
next
with.
month then with a proposal to do that?
We currently have a development management task order with you guys, and that's what we would be doing the work under, I think, Tony, is.
Still-
Yeah, we have that's the one that you guys have renewed, we bring back each year and kind of say,
Okay.
here's all
So
the.
you don't
this-
need any
Nope, we just work under that,
other amendments, so.
correct, not right now, yep.
Thank
Okay.
you very
We
much.
got our marching orders there. I will give you just a brief progress report on Phase 2. The 2B, as I mentioned, was on hold pending the infrastructure redesign. The 2A landscaping is underway. If you happen to go out there, you'll see the landscaping is kind of ongoing. The hill climb concrete work is underway. I'll show you a picture of that. This is just a photo looking back at Toll Brothers products here. See the Spokane River. This is some of the landscaping at one of this is the Toll Brothers product here, so Atlas Road, and this is Veneer Road right here. You can see the style of the landscaping here. There's still more plants to go in here, and the board might remember, one of the things that we wanted to do is to make the landscaping very nice in here. We had a really great plan. You guys cut it back to a more economical plan. But it still will look beautiful, especially as it matures over time. This is looking back towards Area 10, so this is a DeChase product here. And then Area 8, the Butler product, you can see that they have a couple homes underway there. These are single-family units, and then what they have up in here are twin homes. Or, yeah, they're 2 units. So this is at the top of the rockery wall. looking towards the Douglas product. You can see Douglas's stuff going up back there. And then this is the rockery wall. This is part of the hill climb. Remember, one of the early design principles was making sure that there was circulation, pedestrian circulation throughout this. So you'll be able to walk from Celtice Way, shared use path, all the way down to the waterfront park in this location and in 2 other locations. So that's underway here, and the rockery wall is finally finished. Yay.
Looking good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions? Good.
I have a quick question, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I was driving down Ramsey Road, and it looks like you're mounding soil over on the ITD pit.
It's not, the grading isn't finished on it yet.
Okay, I just wondered about that.
Yep, we brought a lot in there. There was quite a bit of expansion when we picked the bark and the soil out of the pit, which we anticipated a swell, because when you pull soil out of the ground, it swells.
Yeah,
This actually swelled considerably, and so you see some of that there. We compacted it on site at the ITD pit, but we still have to get in there and regrade it.
yeah,
the-
all right, thanks.
Is the off-ramp close to completion?
It's the concrete portion is in, and we finished that. The paved section, we're working through a redesign with ITD because they've wanted a different gate, what we believe is a different gate style, and so we had to change the gate style, which changed the design of the driveway. And we're working to be good partners because they've been a great partner to us in allowing us to happen. And so we're having to redesign and spend more money on some things, which means we're trying to back off money and other things because you guys, we only have a fixed budget from the board. So we're trying to stay within the budget that you gave us.
Okay.
And so that's taken a little bit of time to redesign that, get approvals, go back and forth.
Yeah, I just think that could be a great multi-use site with a attainable housing component, you know, if the city could ever get a hold of that somehow eventually in the future.
Yep.
Any comments, Commissioner Garcia?
I believe she's checked out.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well, just kind of in relationship to, I mean, Ramsey and all of that, we had at last night's city council meeting, there's going to be a lot of road projects around town, so keep your patience. Be kind to the flaggers and all of that. No pain, no gain, but there's going to be some very nice things happening, and with resurfacing and part of that, you know, Atlas, we heard a lot of stuff with, you know, at different points, and I drive that road all the time, so there are improvements coming, but you got to put up with some stuff for the improvement, so.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Boyd.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Board Commissioner comments.
That was mine.
Thank you very much. And then, as we all know, Commissioner Widmeyer's term is up. He's gone, and the city council wisely approved Mick Arman last night to be back on our board, and kind of wondering where he is tonight.
Well, that's what I thought.
No, just kidding. So it'll be great to have Mick back. Any other board commissioner comments? And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion that we adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And Jeff, that's a wrap.